Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters through the Silver and the Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us for an episode which has me very excited because it's a bit the 70s at its core, and I think the best way to get there is for Peter to tell us about the cover.
At the top, we have a DC stamp in the corner, slightly different from the usual. Beyond the Bermuda Triangle is the headline. Super Team Family Giant, 50 cents, number 8, January, and production codes 31665, approved by the Comics Code Authority. New, they live on borrowed time, Challengers of the Unknown. And we have the members of the Challengers of the Unknown. It looks like they're on a beach or something. There's buildings in the background. From left to right, we have Rocky, Prof, Red, and Ace. They're all wearing their purple jumpsuits. They've got white boots. They've got white holsters. They've all got guns out. And why do they have guns out? There's a giant energy triangle.
Gosh.
Shimmering in front of them, and coming out of this energy triangle is a huge dinosaur. It looks like a T-Rex. My goodness, it's got 1,000 teeth.
Look at all those teeth.
It's got more teeth than Rob Liefeld can draw.
It's got more teeth than the entire Osmond family, etc.
And there's a caption box at the bottom that says, also featuring the Doom Patrol.
Yes, sadly the Doom Patrol don't turn up in this story as well, but can you imagine?
I'm imagining it right now.
I love this because it's like the triangle is sort of in mid-air and it's got like a crackle around it and the dinosaur is stepping through and it's just like, ooh, and it's, to be honest, listeners, it's not wholly representative of what takes place. And I know I'm normally quite moany and quite bitchy about such things, but look at it, it's a big dinosaur and it's the Challengers and it's talking about the Bermuda Triangle and it's by Rich Buckler. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh. And Borrowed Time was also the name of a Doctor Who novel that I have read, but I can't remember the author. Kenny will doubtless be texting me as he listens. It's been a while since we've had the Challengers on, isn't it?
Certainly is, yes, but they're always fun. Always fun.
We did one issue, issue 50 odd, I think it was issue 53, and then we did a story in our Not the Doom Patrol episode.
That's correct.
That's years then, that's a good few years.
Mm.
I have bought many issues of the Challengers since we did those stories, and when Peter and I finish the Earth 2 podcast and finish our Daily H for Hero podcast, we're planning to move on to the Challengers. That's if we haven't died and if we're still speaking to each other by that point.
The day is young, sir, the day is young.
Yes, who can say? On that bombshell. Right, let's just jump into this absolute riot then.
Mm-hmm.
We kick off at the top of the splash page, as you might expect, with a caption.
What's out there? Places we cannot see, things we fear to touch, sounds that do not belong to this world, riddles of the ages that lurk beyond the bridge without a name. Only men living on borrowed time would dare cross that bridge. Only the Challengers of the Unknown.
So yeah, the Challengers, just to recap very quickly, had kind of descended into reprint hell in the early 70s, hadn't been published for a while. They get a few issues of Super Team Family, which then leads into the revival of their own book, which is an epic story that guest stars like Rip Hunter and Deadman and Swamp Thing. Brilliant stuff. I believe it's been collected. If you've never read them, listeners, go and get a hold of it. Fantastic stuff. But anyway, our opening splash image. We see the Challengers sort of standing ranged left to right. We see Rocky, Prof, Ace and Red, and it's quite a symbolic splash image because we see being picked out the Bermuda Triangle. In the top right-hand corner of the page, we can see Bermuda. Further to the left, we can see Miami. Obscured by Red's right leg, we can see where Puerto Rico would probably be. In the middle of this triangle is a weird sort of horned beast with kind of big pointy antlers and horns on its nose. It kind of looks a bit like either like a Triceratops or some version of the devil.
Mm-hmm.
We're not too sure at this point. Very exciting. Obviously, we'll talk a bit more about the Bermuda Triangle later on, but it was a very 70s, very mid-70s preoccupation. As I say, the lads are all ranged out. As Pete said in the cover, purple jumpsuits with a yellow band down the chest. And there is a caption in the bottom left-hand corner which reads,
What mysterious force reigns in the lime-green waters of the Bermuda Triangle? Why have thousands of men and women disappeared from within its confines, never to be seen again? With the world on the brink of nuclear war, the Challengers must penetrate this uncanny limbo of the lost and uncover the startling secret behind the Devil's Paradise.
And it's great because, as I say, the boys are kind of standing on this logo, which gives us the story title, and it's the waves of the sea are washing up against it. Very exciting. And in the bottom right-hand corner, we get the credits for the issue.
Steve Skeets, writer. Jim Sherman and Jack Abel, artists. Tony Isabella, story editor. Liz Berube, colorist. And Milt Snappin, letterer.
Milt Snappin. Hang on. Do you think he cut about the office going...
All right, Milt, enough of the snapping, Milt.
What's it called? Oh, I can never remember the name. Is it normative the thing when someone... One thing I want to point out, the little thingy at the bottom, it reads Volume 2, Number 8, December to January 1976, stroke 1977. That's worth pointing out. So we all know where we are. Right into the story. Turning the page, a very apocalyptic looking red sky type situation going on. We can see bombs and stuff being dropped by aeroplanes. There's a woman in a tattered dress carrying a small child. Appears to be a washing line in front of her. And it's all dominated by a headline for a newspaper that's called the London Times. Now, Peter's now going to give us the headline from the London Times, and then I'll give you my opinion on it.
Yanks and Soviets in Third World Showdown.
Now, I don't think the Times would say Yanks, would it?
No, probably not, no.
Do you think the London Times, this fiction newspaper, is a bit of a down-market tabloid?
Probably a US and Soviets, it'd probably say.
Yeah, and it appears to cost 15 shillings, or 15s or something. It doesn't look like 15p. So anyway, high stakes straight away, and it's reaffirmed by some captioning.
There is no such thing as a private war. The world has grown far too small. A week ago, the average American did not know the names of these warring nations. Today, their war could plunge the entire planet into nuclear confrontation.
And then we shift into the story properly, and it's very beautifully rendered sort of Caribbean-type sunset. We can see some palm trees and some islands, and the sun is fizzing away in the corner, an aeroplane flying towards it.
The last fingers of day wrap around the ship as it dares the darkening Caribbean skies. Inside the gleaming craft sits perhaps the only man living capable of preventing the approaching Holocaust.
And inside the aeroplane, we see the figure of Dr. Henry Kissinger, who I believe at this point was Secretary of State in the US. Long political career. We won't go into that. We don't really need the details. I'm sure they'll touch on some of it as we go. For description's sake, he's an older fellow, thick glasses, thickly set. He's obviously reading some important paperwork, and he's got a couple of officers in the cabin of the aeroplane with him, and one of them, beating him a cup of coffee, crosses to him and says,
"We're making excellent time, Doctor. We'll have you at those peace talks early."
"Good, good," replies Kissinger, and then a caption reads,
"Suddenly..."
And this is great. It almost looks like there's some kind of sonic ripple affecting the plane. Kissinger goes flying, the officer who just brought him the coffee goes flying, and a younger guy who's there as well. He's knocked off his feet and cries, "The whole ship's shaking like a leaf caught in a hurricane." "Thus," cries Dr. Kissinger, putting his glasses back on, he says, "I've never felt turbulence like that before." And the younger officer says, "It knocked us way, of course, sir. The pilot's taking her down for visual confirmation of our current position and..." He looks out the window, and we see the plane flying through a nice pink sky above and over a Greco-Roman temple, what looks like an Aztec temple, some palm trees, some lush green foliage. Probably not what they're expecting to see out the window, as Kissinger could be heard crying, "Gott in Himmel!"
New Providence Island, the Bahamas.
Yes, we have shifted our location and we're at an air traffic control room. There's a boy on headphones looking at a sort of scope, which is obviously, doing that rounding, spinning thing and echo thing. And he says to his senior officer,
"Sir, we lost the contact with Kissinger flight outside Nassau. They just disappeared from the screen."
And the blonde chap who he's spoken to leans in saying, "Disappeared? Outside Nassau? Good Lord, Adler. Kissinger's lost in the Bermuda Triangle." And we get a nice shot of the sun sinking below the sea, just for emphasis. So, Peter, what's your earliest memory of the Bermuda Triangle?
The Bermuda Triangle, probably an episode of The Bionic Man or something like that.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the 70s adventure shows. What about yourself?
Yeah. Well, at an early age, I was captivated by the BBC screenings of Fantastic Journey.
Ah.
Which were obviously set in the Devil's Triangle. I believe the term's interchangeable. But then, as you say, loads of people did Bermuda Triangle episodes. There was Wonder Woman did a Bermuda Triangle quite early on. Barry Manilow had that massive hit single. The plot of Airport 77 basically loosely involves a plane getting lost in the Bermuda Triangle.
Sure.
That's the one with Christopher Lee and Darren McGavin fact fans, as well as Big George from Guns of the Magnificent Seven.
Oh, excellent.
Quantum Leap, and I always talk about Quantum Leap, I know, and I will talk about it again. Quantum Leap did a Bermuda Triangle episode, which was set in the past, obviously. It was a very 70s preoccupation. I seem to remember, there was probably a board game about it, I'm sure.
Oh, that sounds familiar, yeah. Uh-huh.
And I do wonder if Big Finish haven't done a fourth Doctor story involving the Bermuda Triangle by now. They really should have done so. But anyway, right, so listeners, what's your memories of, if you were around in the 70s, what's your memories of the Bermuda Triangle? Because it definitely was a pop culture preoccupation for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's the next day. A caption reads,
Dawn, the White House.
Yes, beautifully rendered early morning sky over the White House. And we hear a voice saying, Miss Robbins, I want to thank you for coming on such short notice. One doesn't ignore a summons from the President, sir, no matter when it arrives. We cut inside the Oval Office, get a nice back view of the back of President Gerald Ford's head. On the other side of his desk is friend of the challengers, June Robbins, and there's a dark-haired senior military general chap there as well. He gets us back on track when he says,
We'll get right to the point, June. This time it isn't your expertise with computers we need. This concerns some old friends of yours.
And quite possibly the fate of the world. That's my Gerald Ford impression, listeners, not bad, eh? It's clear to Gerald Ford because he's been rendered very, very well and very carefully. He continues saying, there is no way to minimise this crisis. En route to the peace talks, somewhere in the Caribbean, Hank Kissinger has vanished without a trace. The most extensive air and sea search in history turned up absolutely no clues to his whereabouts. I needn't tell you how vital his presence at those talks is. This Devil's Triangle is totally beyond our experience, Miss Robbins. We need specialists in the unknown. We need the challengers. That's a golden rap for the guy playing the general. Collect your check on the way out. Over the page, a caption reads,
Catapulted into world fame by deeds of incredible daring, 4 men have sworn to tread a path which all men fear. The dangerous road beyond the things we know. These men are the challengers of the unknown.
And the rest of the page is taken up with headshot inset captions of each member of the challengers and a little caption describing what the specialist area is and a nice image of them doing some interesting things. So, first of all,
their leader is Ace Morgan, who flies the ships he builds on the threshold of space and beyond.
Yes, beyond space, there you go. And we see what's presumably Ace in a spacesuit hanging out of a sort of satellite capsule type thing, doing something. What it looks like is, I don't know, is that a kind of George Foreman grill that he's operating? I'm not sure.
I think it is. Sizzling in space.
It's a space George Foreman grill. Next up,
Prof. Haley dares to expand man's knowledge anywhere his scientific genius can take him.
Yes, and we see Prof. Haley in his little inset shot, and then we see him in his underwater frogman gear, swimming away from a little submarine which has the Challenger's hourglass motif on it. There's a shoal of fish cutting about behind him, but more interestingly, there's a weird sort of orange-scaled, black and yellow-eyed weird fish man that Prof seems to be swimming towards. I want to read that story. Who's next?
Acrobat, electronics expert, mountain climber. Red Ryan uses all these skills in his running battle with the many unsolved mysteries of the world.
And then we see Red with a nice Challenger motif backpack and a big furry parka, obviously high up in the Himalayas, trying to find the abominable snowmen because we can see some scary silhouettes high above him, but also through the snow just in front of him is a vague, weird, large humanoid figure. I want to read that story as well, listeners.
And when the unknown tests a man's stamina and strength to the limit, Rocky Davis will risk that test. Any place, any time.
And our final introductory image of a challenger at work and play is Rocky wrestling a weird-looking, scary, big, tall robot. He's got his head down as he's sort of shouldering it and trying to force it back. And he seems to be succeeding because you can see the robot is losing part of its footage. Very, very exciting. We are continued on the third page following. Passing advertisement for Daisy Guns. Yes, marvellous.
David, did you know that Daisy Guns supported Shania Twain on her 1999 European tour?
I don't think she played the night I saw Shania. I bought a t-shirt, listeners, when I went to see Shania Twain in 1999, because obviously, and I've never worn it. Or did I wear it once? I think I might have worn it once, because what we used to do a thing in HMV when, like, if we all gave a quid to charity, we could wear a band t-shirt, and I might have worn it one day out at the fort, I can't remember. But yes, she was fantastic, and a vision in leopard print, and I love her to this day. Anyway, over the page, top of the next page, etc., Pete comes back with a caption.
The presidential call goes out, and soon after, within the 4 Fear Fighters hidden Challenger mountain base...
Yep, we see the lads sprinting down a corridor towards a flying vessel, and Ace speaks first, saying, "We know the situation, and we've made our plans. Let's move it, team." Red, trying to encourage one of his colleagues, says,
"Hurry up, Rockhead. We don't want to keep June waiting."
"Who died and left you the leadership, Carrot Top? Last I heard, Ace was still our boss man." "Knock it off, you two. I can't concentrate on flying our new plane while you're feuding." And then we see a great shot of the new plane, which just looks like a kind of manta ray, to be honest. Very flat, squat thing with 4 engines, zooming out of a big open doorway, carved into the side of a mountain. Tremendous. The next shot, we're in the cockpit, everyone hanging on and paying attention. Prof's got a compass in his hand, which is pretty cool. And Ace is saying, continuing discussing the fact they're in their new plane, when he says, "It's extremely experimental. Wish I'd been able to give it a test run before using it on this mission. Still, if any plane can get us to hell and back, this is the baby that'll do it."
Mere hours later...
Yep, we see the plane flying over a small boat. And we see the boat is being piloted by June Robbins, who waves at the plane, saying, "There go the boys now. As per our plan, I'll track them on radar and follow them as closely as I can."
Then...
We're inside the cabin of the boat. You can see that June has one hand on the wheel, and she's also looking at a sort of scanning device beside her, has a bit of a radar-type screen readout on it, and she's looking at it closely, and she's thinking, "They're almost past the spot where Kissinger vanished, and nothing's Their blip is starting to waver and grow faint. What in the name of heaven is happening to them?" And then we get a great shot of the plane, and it's being struck with the same sort of rippling circles that attacked Kissinger's plane earlier in the story. From inside, we hear Prof's voice saying,
"This terrible turbulence, it just came out of nowhere. Ace, can the plane take it?"
And then we hear Rocky when he says, "Man, I was never even tossed around like this in the ring." Inside the vehicle for the next panel, it's a great Dutch tilt to it going on. Ace, struggling with the wheel, is saying, "We're going into a nosedive. I don't know if I can pull us out." "For the love of Mike, Ace, try," contributes Rocky. A caption reads,
"It is a time, perhaps, for personal, private thoughts. Yet the thoughts of these 4 men are far from dissimilar."
And we see Red thinking,
"Maybe this is it."
And Prof, looking very moody in the foreground of this panel, is thinking,
"Looks like our borrowed time has run out. And yet, the first time we were in a jam like this, things looked just as bleak."
A caption reads,
And as Ace continues to strain at the stick, his partners in peril think back and remember.
Yeah, we get a nice blue-tinted flashback over the next 3 panels to obviously the origin of the Challengers. And again, in this one, we can see them all in the clothes they're wearing when it all kicked off. Ace is trying to land the plane they're in, and young Red can be seen crying,
"How bad are our chances, Flyboy?"
"Bad enough to force a crash landing, Ryan. Here goes."
The screaming craft dove earthward, and...
Yes, with a massive... We see it collide with the ground, taking trees down and everything. A very small caption reads,
But...
We see them all emerging from the wreckage, some of them sitting down already. And with Prof standing on top of the wreckage of the plane, he says,
"We're alive, even though we should be dead. Even my watch stopped."
And Ace in the foreground of the panel says, "We're living on borrowed time, men. Are we going to waste our second lives, or are we going to put them to good use?" There we go, it's a nice handy recap. Flashback ends with a caption.
Suddenly, Ace's commanding voice calls the others back to the present.
Yes, we see Ace pulling on the wheel as he says, "It's working! The hovering qualities I built into this baby are slowing our descent." And we see the plane zooming down and then righting itself, levelling out, flying over a beach on an island with tons of palm trees and stuff as Ace cries, "We made it!" Next inset panel, the plane has landed and they're all jumping out, with Prof saying,
"I've got a feeling our troubles aren't over yet."
To which Red says,
"Now there's an understatement for you."
"I can't be certain, guys," says Ace, "but I think we've made it to wherever Kissinger disappeared to." And we see in front of the boys what I would just describe as sort of cavemen types riding giant, weird rhinoceros dinosaur-looking things, the heads of which are like the creature we saw in the opening splash image. That's interesting. Right. Looking around at all of this, Rocky says to Red, "Better give me a hand up, circus man. We're going to have to cut these creeps down a size."
"You're on, Muscles,"
says Red, who drops to his knee, putting his hands out in front of his other knee for support, as Rocky runs forward, and Red flips him up into the air, crying,
"And away you go!"
And immediately Rocky collides with a couple of lads who are riding these rhinosaurs, for want of a better way of putting it, and they go flying. One of them exclaims, Another one says, Rocky drops to the ground, where his colleagues are already getting stuck in. We see Ace swinging on one of the antlers of one of the rhinoceros to kick out its pilot, and we can see Red launching himself through midair and pulling another sort of rider off of his steed, and we should probably take a second to describe them. Now, in the foreground, we can see Rocky punching out a guy who appears to be wearing sort of torn military fatigues, and the guy that Ace is kicking off of his steed is wearing what looks to be some kind of Roman helmet, and then there's a guy who looks a bit like an old Mongol warrior on top of one of the other ones, and the guy that Red has got appears to be wearing fairly modern-looking clothing, but he's got a sword at his belt. So, what do you think is going on here then? Anyway, as it's all kicking off and they're knocking the lads flying, Rocky says, "That brings a couple of them down to our level."
Add one more to that, Rock,
says Red as he goes flying with the guy he's grabbed, and then Prof. Haley punches out another guy saying,
"You keeping score, Red?" And then, the unexpected.
Yes, the weird circles are back, resonating out from the heads of the rhinoceros, as we're calling them. And Prof says,
"Vibrations from those things' horns, knocking us off our feet."
"They're getting stronger, affecting our balance. Our opponents are unaffected. They ordered the beast to do this." And then Red says,
"And they're immune to the vibrations."
And then we see Rocky really struggling as he says, "How can you two talk? How can you even think? I'm..." On the top of the next page, we see them all falling unconscious on the ground. And one of the guys who was riding one of the rhinoceros with a sword in his hand steps forward saying,
"Unconsciousness has claimed them. We must imprison them before they revive."
There's a slow dissolve, listeners.
Presently...
Yes, we see Rocky waking up, rubbing his head, obviously in some kind of prison cell. We can see the traditional, as we'd expect to see, the metallic bars holding them in. Red standing over him as Rocky rubs his head. Red says,
"Welcome back to the real world, Bonehead. Took you long enough to get here."
He leans forward to help Rocky up, saying,
"Maybe if you had a more sophisticated mind like the rest of us, you'd have come to sooner."
"Oh, wow, that's hard. Knock off the insults, pal, and just tell me what the blazes is going on around here."
"Sure thing, Chuckles. We found Kissinger and his party, but we don't seem to be any better off than they are. The doc's filling Ace and Prof in this happy little island's history."
Yes, we see Kissinger sat at the table with Ace and the Professor, and in the background we can see some of Kissinger's crew. They're all kind of lounging around or sitting around looking very maudlin, and Prof is scribbling away in a piece of paper, as Kissinger says, "So, the internal vibrations of those creatures caused their whole island to vibrate a split second out of sync with our world." To which Ace says, "And somehow, those vibrations can draw planes and ships from our world to this island." And then Prof says,
"No wonder this island has never been discovered. It's in another dimension."
Which is why we're doing this comic, listeners. Kissinger contributes, "There must also be about these vibrations something that causes immortality. This would explain why the inhabitants come from so many different eras." No, not really, mate. Maybe it's just like Paradise Island and that John Byrne Wonder Woman story that Shag's just been talking about, or maybe it's like Fantastic Journey, where people arrive from different times, but it's always now on the island. You know, it's probably like that. Rocky's not having it. He walks forward and slams a frustrated fist down on the table, saying, "That's all well and good, Doc, but what I want to know is, why did they bring us to this cell?" Says Kissinger as the desk is slammed in front of him. Ace replies, though, saying, "These people are very paranoiac, Rocky. They think if anyone were to leave here with knowledge of their paradise, others would come to conquer their island. Once you're here, by their laws, you either stay or die." Rocky's raging in this next panel. "What? But if we don't get the Doc to those peace talks, there could be a nuclear war. That'd destroy this island too." "Okay, wise guy, you convince them of that." But then Red, standing away from all this, hears something and says,
"Hey, somebody's coming."
And then we see the chap who we probably saw earlier on, that what we described loosely as a sort of Mongol warrior. He's wearing a kind of furry hat, he has green loose trousers on, he's carrying a scimitar, and he's got little green shoes with curled up little bits at the end, and next to him, operating the control to open the prison cell, is a guy who I would loosely describe as wearing a sort of conquistador outfit. So again, this is emphasising that people have come here from different times. And this chap with the green addresses Prof, who's standing at the front of the cage, and he says to him,
"The tribunal awaits you." "You can't imagine how much that thrills me,"
says Prof dryly.
"The prisoners are led from the cell and down a long, dark corridor. The challengers whisper among themselves. Whisper and plan.
Yes, we see them all being led along. It's clear that Reds and Rocky are exchanging a few words. Ace might be muttering to the Prof. Kissinger's with them, so are the other soldiers. A caption on top of the next page reads,
Ultimately...
Yes, they've been brought into a very large chamber. It could be the inside of a church or something. Very high dome. We can see the brick walls, what looks like stained glass. There's an intricate little ornate lighting thing hanging down. We can see balconies and passageways leading off. All of our heroes are standing, and in front of them are a number of men in different styles of outfits, but there are three people sat up on a sort of raised dais, obviously at the top of a little wall. You can see hooks hanging from it and stuff. And they're addressing everyone. The first guy in the middle, wearing blue, says,
You have been brought here to be told of the only two choices you are allowed.
Rocky, again, immediately isn't having it. He steps away from the others, saying, Yeah, we heard about those choices, Judge, but there's a third choice you forgot about, and that's the one we're taking. We choose to escape, even if that is against your stupid rules. And we see Rocky getting stuck into one poor spear carrier, punching him out in the stomach as the guy says, and goes flying. Ace runs forward saying, Muscles is taking the lead, boys. You know what to do from here on in.
We sure do, leader man,
says Red, jumping forward and basically pushing a guy back by shoving his hand into his face. Tremendous. There's a big fight in the next panel and a caption.
But as the challengers decimate the ranks of their time-lost captors, one of their proud number fails to guard his rear.
Yes, we see Prof, after he's knocked out a bald guy in a green shirt, being struck from behind by a dark-haired man in a red and white striped vest. He strikes him in the back of the head with the handle of his cutlass with a very satisfying
bonk.
And Prof exclaims,
Ugh.
The guy in the red and white striped vest has grabbed Prof by the hair and is holding his sword to his throat. He says,
Hear me, outsiders. Cease your fighting now, or your friend loses his head.
Prof, cries Rocky. And the three challengers whisper amongst themselves. What do we do now, Ace? Says Rocky.
What do you think we're going to do, stupid? Especially since we never planned to win this fight.
Red's right, big fella. Our plan is working perfectly, even if our boys getting knocked cold was an unexpected ad-lib. Okay, mister. We yield.
As the challengers are led back to their cell.
Yep, challengers being walked back along with Kissinger and his crewmen. Rocky and Ace bearing the unconscious form of the professor between them. Ace is saying, I hope this little skirmish has convinced them that they've broken our spirits. To which Rocky says, That way they won't be prepared when we make our real bid for freedom.
Soon?
Yep, there's been a slow dissolve. Everyone's back in their cell. Prof and Red sat at the table, working away on something. Rocky, Kissinger and Ace looking on with Rocky saying, I still don't see how we can open the door without a key. The bars are too strong for even me to bend. And then Ace says, We're borrowing an idea from our captor's creature friends, Rocky. And then Prof finally has something to say when he says,
With the equipment we all had hidden in the heels of our boots, I built a vibration device of our own. We're going to vibrate the door open. Of course, I couldn't have constructed the device without Red's electronics genius.
Yes, we can see that Red's electronic knowledge has come in very handy because he's activated the device and the door to the cage is sliding open. Ace is already sprinting forward. Pat Red in the back later, Prof. Right now, it's time to bust out of this hotel. And we see them all running out of the cage, like the Killers in that song that time. And there's a guard who looks a bit like Sonny Bono, it must be said. How mid-70s can you get? And Ace knocks him out, saying, They weren't expecting another escape attempt. We've caught them off guard. Head for the beach. That's where our plane is. And we see they've hooked up a line, and Rocky and Kissinger are starting to descend out of the window of the castle or the building, wherever it is they are. Bit of a narrative leap because we see the challengers and Kissinger now making their way through the foliage of the jungle down towards the beach, with Kissinger saying, I'd heard of your team's resourcefulness from the president, Mr. Ryan. It puzzles me now. He's not usually given to understatement. We have a caption, a very short caption, but it means Peter gets something to say.
Meanwhile...
We cut back to June on her little boat, and she's thinking to herself, Great, I was supposed to keep an eye on the boys, and I got caught in the same teleportation field that enveloped their plane. Worse yet, I've lost them. And then we see June approaching the beach and a couple of the rhinosaurs and a few of their handlers there as well. And June thinks, whoops, spoke too soon. Knowing the child's propensity for finding weirdness wherever they go, I'd hazard a guess this island is where they disappeared to. And it looks like the natives aren't exactly friendly as a spear goes flying past her. We then cut back to further up the top of the cliff where we see the challengers looking down at June's boat and a couple of rhinosaurs and a few spear handlers as Red points and says,
It's June.
She followed us right in the trouble, says Rocky, and then Ace says, Come on, team. We'll make our attackers wish they'd never been born. All except you, Prof.
Check. I'll head for our plane. I've got work to do there.
And then top of the next page, there's a brilliant big fight scene that's headed off with a caption that reads,
Once more, the challengers face the island's defenders. But this time, with the avid participation of Kissinger's crew, the sides are more evenly matched.
Yes, even June's getting stuck in, obviously. She's knocking a few guys with top knots into the water. We can see Rocky flipping a guy over his head and one of the other crew members dealing with a spear carrier and Ace getting his shirt ripped off by someone and Red obviously using his acrobatics to knock one of the Rhinosaur riders off. And even Kissinger getting stuck in when he sends one guy flying by striking him with his briefcase. And that prompts Rocky to say, "Atta way, Doc. For a peace negotiator, you sure pack a wallop." But then again, we're not exactly lightweights, and with a fantastic backhand, he knocks out the sword-wielding guy who is about to strike him from behind. The guy can only exclaim, "Ugh!" But then in the next panel, we see the circles that start to resonate out again from the Rhinosaur, and this knocks Rocky off his feet as he says, "Oh, those vibrations are starting again. We've had it." And then thankfully, Prof appears with a weird gizmo, and he says,
That's what you think, Mr. Davis. This little gizmo I made from parts I copped from our plane gives us the edge again. It absorbs the creature's vibrations, amplifies them, and sends them right back at them.
Gosh. And then we shift to a very high angle sort of shot where we can see the Challenger's plane at the top of the panel and the beam coming back from Prof Haley's gun, striking a couple of the Rhinosaurs and making them look a little bit disorientated. He continues,
But this is a hastily constructed device based on complex principles. It's starting to lose power already.
And at this point we see Red rushing out into the water as he cries,
Don't sweat it, Prof. I'll get these monsters off our backs.
We see him launching himself into June's boat as he thinks,
These creatures have a roar that sounds almost as obnoxious as June's boat horn. So, with a little luck...
Red climbs to the top of June's boat and starts manoeuvring it out into the water, but he has something in his hand which he fires with a
Fart!
sound effect, and this makes the Rhinosaur start to follow the boat out into the water. Triumphantly, Red thinks,
It's working. For once, Prof didn't have to invent a device. June brought it with her. The mating call of the female boat horn.
Back on the beach, we see the Challenger still knocking 7 colours of you-know-what out of some of the people on the island. June doing a brilliant flying kick. Rocky punching one guy out. He's still holding onto his shirt. Amazing. Ace, with his tattered shirt, runs forward saying, Now that their pets have deserted them, we should be able to make fast work of these persistent paranoids. Calling back to his colleague, he says, Prof, you'd better get ready to replace any parts you cannibalized for your device.
Don't worry about that, Ace. Most of the parts for my fantastic device came from our ship's built-in laboratory.
And with that, Prof punches out a sailor in a hat, whose hat goes flying, and the sailor exclaims, Ugh! Amazing. Listeners, I'm breathless. There's a slow dissolve.
Soon?
Everyone's on board the plane. We can see Kissinger sat down. We can see his colleagues from earlier in the story. We see Ace and June. Everyone sat there. The last of Kissinger's team is jumping in as Prof Haley pulls down the hatch. Ace announces, Hang on, people. And then Rocky says, I'm taking this bird out of here. Great shot of the weird flying vessel taking off as we hear Rocky's voice saying, Look, Ace, it's all the same to me, but what about Carrot Top? We can't leave him behind. Indeed, we see the boat plugging out the water being chased by about half a dozen Rhinosaurs at this point. Red, looking back at them all over his shoulder, thinks,
Wonderful. It wasn't bad enough that the creatures were closing in anyway. Now this boat is running out of fuel.
Oh my goodness. And then, thankfully, he spots that help is at hand as he looks up, sees something and thinks,
Wait! God smiles and Red Ryan again. Ace is lowering a ladder from the plane.
And just in time, because one of the Rhinosaurs has caught up to the boat and has attacked it, starting to smash up the stern, just as Red jumps onto the rope ladder and cries,
Sorry I fooled you with that mating call, boys, but I did it for my own good.
We see the island receding into the distance as the plane flies off, Red clinging onto the rope ladder as he thinks,
Good thing Ace built these hovering qualities into the plane. Otherwise, even with my acrobatic ability, I could never have caught hold.
Red makes his way inside the vessel with Rocky saying, Sure took you long enough to climb up here, Red. Could be you losing your touch.
Oh, why don't you?
But he's interrupted by Ace, who cries, Brace yourselves, folks! We're about to hit the vibration field! And indeed, the circles start again as Red and Rocky, presumably the others, go flying. Great shot of the plane as inside we hear Prof saying,
We're breaking through to our world, but Can the plane take the strain?
You better believe it, replies Ace. We're through. A very happy Red says.
You know, Ace, I could get to like this baby.
And Rocky says, I'm just glad we got off that paranoid farm. Kissinger gets a beautifully rendered close-up as he says, yeah, and perhaps we can learn from those islanders. Think of it. So many people from so many different cultures banded together against a common enemy. If only we could do that. If only our world could band together against one common enemy, and have that enemy be war itself. And as the Challenger's plane flies off into another beautifully rendered sunset, a small caption reads,
The end. Although it should say, make war no more.
It should. Man, I'm exhausted after that.
Well, that's all we've got time for in this week's episode of the Davy Steele Show.
Yes. Yes, listeners, this was just one of those ones when I think I look back at who we'd voiced before and I went, right, Pete can be Prof and Red, and I did not properly read the story to see that much of the conversation was just between Ace and Rocky. So, yes, a good one for Peter to rest his vocal cords.
Yes, very true. Very true. Much appreciated, sir. That was tons of fun.
It was great. The island that Kissinger was on was in another dimension. That's one of the few lines that you did get to sort of say, which was the main reason for doing this, I suppose, was it's a bit tenuous. It's not really multiversy, but it's very zeitgeisty for the time.
I'll be honest, I think the other dimension is actually a parallel universe because it is a vibration that they access it through, and that's how the parallel universes are differentiated. So I think that's more than likely they just call it another dimension. That's fair enough.
No, you're right, I suppose. Yeah.
Because generally other dimensions tend to be mystical in nature or some sort of scientific device. But the fact they've actually said vibrations does make it seem to me that it is a parallel universe.
Yeah. I hadn't thought about that. No, that's fine. That's good. It's an interesting one here because it's very rare that the stories we've done have featured real people.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've sort of generally decided that the Challengers are on off one.
Yeah.
There will be a story we do before too long, which will reaffirm that. And I actually have to have a look at that and see which of the Challengers has the most lines in that Justice League story. It's interesting to see Kissinger and Ford being rendered so clearly and carefully. That's very unusual.
Time was definitely taken over their portrayals. Yeah, that was very clear and very succinct. I liked it. I
must talk quickly about when President Ford was referenced in Quantum Leap. It was the excellent early episode Disco Inferno when the kid brother of the lad that Sam has leapt into wants to be a country singer, but his dad wants him to do stunt work and all that. And then Al points out that on the television news bulletin they're watching that President Ford's going to fall down the stairs again. So Sam sort of says, right, if I correctly anticipate this, Ford's going to fall down the stairs again. And they say, oh, no, we don't believe him. And Sam says, well, if I'm right, you can let him be a country singer. And they go, okay, then. And then Ford falls down the stairs, so the boy gets to be a country singer. And Sam leaps out just in time. And even actually in the episode, they reference something you said in prep. On the early seasons of Saturday Night Live, Chevy Chase was doing the news desk, and he always had a running gag that Gerald Ford was falling or tripping, and it was, I can't remember how he phrased it, it's like Secret Service agents wrestled him to the ground or something like that. Very funny as a running gag, I must admit. It's good. Yeah, I have to be honest, I don't have any memory of President Ford as a little boy. I remember Jimmy Carter being on the news and stuff, but I don't remember Ford at all. Do you remember Ford? You're so much older than me. Do you remember him? so much older than you. First time I ever became aware of Gerald Ford was in the strip club in Beverly Hills Cop. They pretended that Taggart was ex-President Gerald Ford. And he does bear a slightly similar resemblance to him. That's the first time I really became aware of him, because I wasn't really into politics as a youngster. I see. Well, trouble was, because I had the same name as a very prominent British politician, I was very politically aware from a very early age, unfortunately. Listeners, when did you first become aware of President Ford? Ross, Chuck, Max, Rich, Steve, I'm looking at all of you. Please hit us up with some facts and we can talk about them in the end of the year episode if we remember. So yeah, it was interesting to see them being in the story. Kissinger, I think, was Secretary of State at this point, so it makes sense for him to be there. And he's obviously, he died a few years ago. Yeah. He made it to 100. My goodness. Quite a controversial figure these days, because obviously, a lot of decisions he made in the past have been sort of questioned or what have you. It's interesting to see him in this one, in a story being painted very favourably, which kind of surprises me given it was written by Steve Skeet, because I always got a sense he was a little bit subversive. So, David, Pete, when did you first become aware of Henry Kissinger? I don't know. I remember hearing his name mentioned in news reports and stuff, and being aware that he was, a prominent American I think it was by immigration, American politician, but I really don't know. I don't remember him being on the news or anything as a kid. I don't think he ever got mentioned in Quantum Leap or anything. What about you?
I think it was a line in Fawlty Towers where Basil says, "Who does he think he is? Henry Kissinger?"
That rings a bell.
Was there not a Monty Python song as well? Henry Kissinger, I'll be missing you. Something like that. I think there was.
I'm not sure. I don't really go in for the Python albums as much as I do the TV series.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm not sure. There's a few British politicians that I'm only aware of because they got mentioned in the Python TV series. But that one's lost on me. So listeners, when did you first become aware of Henry Kissinger? Ross, Steve, Chuck, Max, Rich, we're looking at you. Mm-hmm. Brian, Alan, write in, let us know if you ever saw any of these people, if you ever saw President Ford or Kissinger in real life. Let us know, that sort of thing.
Can you imagine? Wow.
Nice to do the challenges again. I enjoyed the little origin recap.
Yes, that was a very subtle one, very quick, just 3-panel. That was good because it was obviously this is almost like a new relaunch for the challengers. They've got a new ship, which is a bit more modern looking compared to their old galloping gizmo that they used to have, which is basically the Fantastic Car because it could split into 4 parts and they could all fly off and do their own thing.
Sure.
So this is an update to that. It looks a lot more 70s, a lot sleeker, a lot cooler. Bit more Logan's Runny, and it was good, yeah. But yes, it's obviously a reintroduction of the characters because you've got the origin recap, you've got the splash page that introduces everyone and what their skills are.
Yeah.
It doesn't say specifically that Prof is also a diving expert, but his actual panel shows him doing his undersea adventures because that was initially his speciality was. It was always diving, and later on they kind of added science into. I think they added science pretty much into all of them.
Sure.
Gone to this. I didn't know Rocky could fly. He could fly this. Oh, of course, he could fly his Galloping Gizmo bit. Yeah, I forgot.
Yeah, that bit when Red launched him was pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was a very fastball special sort of move, wasn't it?
Yes, the classic Colossus and Wolverine thing where Colossus picks up Wolverine and chucks him at whoever the bad guy is.
Yes.
If I remember rightly, that was introduced in X-Men issue 100.
Right.
And that was May 1976 that was out.
Yeah, just a few months before this one. So there we go. How's Zeitgeisty? I mean, again, we're laughing at it as we were going, but I had not... I didn't realise I was going to end up doing like 80% of the dialogue because it just seemed to be divvied up between Ace and Rocky. So Prof didn't get much to say in this story at all, did he?
No, not hugely. But hey, he did manage to get all of the special electronics equipment that they keep in their boots.
Yes.
And put it together. What's all that about? That's hilarious.
They are creatures of infinite resource, these challengers of the unknown. They know what they're doing. That was quite funny.
I have built a vibration device from which we can escape from this cell from the contents of our boots.
Yes.
That's like the Martian Manhunter making a tape recorder out of seaweed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which he was doing all the time, especially in May 2008. I want to quickly just jump to the cover, which features a tyrannosaur-type creature emerging through an energy triangle into some sign of civilization. That didn't happen.
Nope, it didn't happen.
Didn't happen at all. But there you go, so it doesn't matter, it's cool.
But we did get the wonderful rhinosaurs, which is trademark us when we write our DC comic. Rhinosaurs will feature heavily in them. Rhinosaurs.
Write that down, listeners, you heard it here first. Yes, that was me mangling. That was quite interesting. It feels a bit familiar, though. It seems a bit sort of Krypton monster type sort of thing,
Yeah.
I'm maiming the circles for the benefit of our YouTube viewers. That sort of happening. They were fun.
It mostly resembled a Triceratops, except it had more curved horns at the top.
Yeah.
And an extra horn on the nose. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't have the big sort of sail fin thing at the back of its crest thing at the back of its head. I'm miming that for the benefit of our YouTube viewers. One thing I thought was very subtle, like the opening episode of Fantastic Journey, which Fantastic Journey sort of started off, you'll get clips on YouTube, listeners. It was very much this sort of historical melting pot where whenever people arrived from outside, they all seem to arrive on the island at set time.
Okay.
But once it went to series, they kind of got rid of the time travel aspect and they just went through kind of zones and it just became weird sci-fi plot story of the week.
Okay.
Again, you referenced Logan's Run earlier on, very like the Logan's Run TV series. I've got a memory that I could be wrong on this, that an unused plot for Fantastic Journey was used in Logan's Run, or maybe I'm just imagining that I've read that, or vice versa, or something.
All right, okay.
Because they were almost interchangeable. But the pilot episode of Fantastic Journey makes a real big deal out of this people from different periods in history.
Yeah.
Also, actually, a little bit like The Lost Islands, the Australian TV show, also from the 70s, but that didn't do the Bermuda Triangle. What struck me as we read this was how little emphasis was really sort of given to where all these people had come from and who they were. I mean,
Yeah.
Kissinger's got that line about immortality, which I kind of... But the people who stand in judgment, the three people who sort of sat on that raised dais,
Uh-huh.
the pulpit sort of thing, to give judgment on our boys, we don't get a single close-up of them. We don't know who they are, what their motivation. There's nothing really given to what's going on, what is the situation on this island, who are these people in charge, how's it all ended up like this. That is completely washed over, which is a shame.
That scene reminded me very much of towards the end of Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Sure.
Where you've got that council that are all up in the raised dais. They're all looking down past the judgment before they unmask, and you see that they're all hideous mutants.
Yeah. I mean, it's this bit when the guy in the hat says, the tribunal awaits you, and then the guy says, you've been brought here to be told of the only two choices you're allowed, and then Rocky says, yeah, we heard about them, but we don't get told what the choices are. You know, that's a bit of a failing.
It's cake or death, that's what it is.
Yes. Yes. Can I have our pyjamas now? You know, I would have liked maybe a couple less pages of fisticuffs and chatting in the cell, and maybe, I don't know, it would have been nice if there had been a little bit more room for that.
Yeah.
Because, again, I find that quite interesting, this idea that all this sort of melting pot of history, all these people from different times that have all been brought through.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if there's any other DC Bermuda Triangle stories around this era, but if this is the DC Universe explanation for it, that's fine. But, I mean, it would have been nice to see, maybe we're verging into when we write our DC comic territory here. It would have been great to have, say, a long unpublished DC or Quality Comics character be amongst the people that was already on this island.
That'd be wonderful.
For example.
Yeah. I think the Bermuda Triangle should actually be a creation of the Angle Man. Because that's, you know, exactly the shape of his device, his angler.
Sure.
Yeah, it seems to be right up his alley. So when we write our DC comic, that'll be what we do.
Yeah. I mean, it's as good as it was, having to do 80% of the dialogue for the story. I would have liked it if there'd been just a little bit more of the situation that they found themselves in, you know? There was an awful lot of conversation between them all, and it's like, right, I would maybe liked a little bit less of that and a bit more of exploration of what was going on, and maybe if Kissinger had been a bit more directly involved, maybe in some kind of negotiation with the people in charge, you know, that would have maybe made his presence more appropriate. I don't know.
Yeah, true. True. I would have liked to have heard more about the setup for the whole thing, because obviously the world's on the brink of nuclear war.
Exactly.
But the caption says the average American doesn't know the names of the warring nations. But whoever it is, obviously, US are backing one side and the Soviets are backing another side.
Yeah.
And the world's on the cusp of nuclear Armageddon.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is fascinating. I'd love to know a little bit more than that. Obviously, we just get a war-torn scene with a couple of planes flying overhead there as well. Yeah. And you've got, as you said, the woman in rags running away with the baby, but there's nothing to indicate what's happening.
Yeah, that's true.
And the London Times, is it London in England? Is it a different London? Because there's Londons all over the place.
Oh, there's one. It's not one in Canada.
I think so, yeah. Huh? I'm sure there's a few in the States as well.
Yanks and Soviets and Third World Showdown. Yeah.
I'd love to know more about that. I think the artwork in this is wonderful. I think this is the first Jim Sherman one we've done.
I think so, yeah. There's tons of stuff in it. Like, the rhinosaurs look really cool. As we've said, the photorealistic renderings of President Ford and Kissinger are great. They've got time to give us a page of each of the challengers having a separate adventure to what's actually going on. That's fascinating.
I especially love Red's one because you've got, as you said, you've got the shadows of the Yetis on top, but also hidden, almost camouflaged into a rock face is another Yeti because of all the snow coming down. Yeah. You only really see the shadow outlining him. It's great. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's great. It just makes me want to read more Challengers comics, to be honest, which is never a bad thing.
You always want to read Challengers comics.
I know. No, and again, I really enjoy reading this, and it does make me look forward to the days when we finish our full cast audio dramatisation of Armageddon Inferno is the last thing we do in the Earth 2 podcast. Before we jump into alternate between Dial H for Hero and Challengers. If that ever happens, that'd be lovely.
There we are. I thought it was quite cool that they used June to introduce the team. June's important enough that the president calls on her to come to the White House.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, and she's like, all right, okay, I'll get the guys. I'll put the band back together. That's fine.
That's a good point.
And I like how she was the one that was kind of observing everything at the start, keeping an eye on exactly what's happening and then knowing when she's going in. And then, of course, it switches and she's fighting on the beach and Red's off in the boat, so that there's a nice little switch there, so everyone gets a shot of the action.
Yeah.
But it does make sense strategically to have someone kind of like a bit more aside, observing what's happening, so that if anything does go wrong, she can report back and maybe get Task Force X to step in, perhaps.
Oofed.
Another similar team of highly skilled adventurers.
Yeah.
Or Cave Carson, or perhaps Rip Hunter, or perhaps the Sea Devils. They could all jump in.
Exactly. Maybe Deadman and Swamp Thing could turn up and complicate matters.
Now,
I've just quickly jumped on to Mike's Amazing World for the entry for this issue, and says the challenges had all last appeared in issue 74, which was published in 1970, but June had last appeared apparently in issue 46 of Challengers. Now, I don't know if that's right. I've got a memory of her being in some of the... Or was there another girl that hung about with them?
There was Karina Stark.
That's who I'm thinking of. Right.
Yeah, She features in the Jeff Loeb, Tim Sale miniseries as well.
Right.
Karina Stark.
Got you.
Well, as did June as well, but she features a bit more prominently there.
That'll be me being confused. See, listeners, that just shows how much I have to learn by A, reading more Challengers comics, or Pete and I doing our Challengers podcast, because I just assumed that it was the same girl all the time. That's terrible.
Gas.
Gosh, on that bombshell. So, shall we jump to the contemporary correspondence?
Let's do so. Let's jump to Super Team Family issue 10. And Team Talk.
I'll let Peter read the first long one because you're all sick of the sound of my voice.
Dear Joe, so this is what the Challengers of the Unknown are like today. To be totally honest, I love their combination of old and new costumes, and the storyline in Super Team Family 8 was fairly interesting, mainly because of Steve Skeet's characterizations of the usually bland team. It seems that Red is finally getting a bit more built up, but I wish you'd explore Prof's character a bit more thoroughly. Sure, Prof is the egghead of the group, but after seeing so many other intellectual characters in comics acting all-knowing and unemotional, it really gets to be boring. So I sincerely hope that Prof will be developed as both character and a personality. On the story itself, I'd have to say that The Devil's Paradise was not one of the best scripts I've seen Steve write, but then again, it wasn't one of the worst either. It seemed to me that the whole story was written with a gotta meet the deadline feeling, as opposed to writing something that he really enjoyed. Also, the appearance of President Ford and Secretary of State Kissinger was somewhat ineffectual, and seemed to be included merely for the sake of stretching the story out to 17 pages. I don't think that Mr. Ford would call the Challengers for aid without first using the armed forces to search for Kissinger, and or assuming that the plane merely had a mechanical failure and crashed into the ocean. Another thing really bothered me. How come the Challengers had virtually no reaction or fear or even surprise when they beheld the mounted prehistoric creatures? One could argue that they've seen so many monsters that these were just routine. But then, if you've seen a shark 1,000 times, it still doesn't lessen your fear of it. Don't get me wrong, I'm really very happy to see the Challengers of the Unknown back in all new stories, but I think Steve could have done a better job scripting the story than was done in issue 8. I'm sure that as soon as Steve gets the feel of the Chals, he'll be able to make Super Team Family one of your top books. Thank you very much for bringing the Challengers of the Unknown back. So says Troy Rose from Clintwood, Virginia.
Lovely. No editorial response, but the next letter says, Dear Joe, I just finished reading the new Super Team Family and I decided to write while it was still fresh in my mind. The artwork by Steve Sherman and Jack Abel was really nice. I especially liked the sunset scenes and the drawings of President Ford and Mr. Kissinger. So did I. How do they feel about being DC's newest heroes? Say, why aren't there any new Doom Patrol stories? The reprints are nice, but I'd like to see this good stuff in more up-to-date stories. Well, I'm happy to see the Challengers of the Unknown back in action, and I really look forward to their next outing. Now, this person must be our big fan, because they are called Name Unknown. They've named themselves after the Challengers. And they're from Wyoming, I'm presuming that's Michigan. Editorial response to that letter reads,
Thanks for the kind words, Mr. Unknown, but we told the Chals that relatives couldn't write in.
That's outrageous. That's so good. Sorry.
But seriously, folks, there are no plans for new Doom Patrol stories as of now. Yet, who knows? Things change around here faster than we can keep track of them. Perhaps if your reaction to the DP is strong enough, we might just surprise you. As for President Ford and Mr. Kissinger, would you believe super politicians team up comics? No? Well, We didn't think so.
Oh my goodness, that's a challenge extended, isn't it? Super Politicians Team Up Comics. That'd be amazing.
In fairness, I think the Doom Patrol are dead at this point. They haven't come back in Showcase yet.
Yeah, this is definitely before the revival and Showcase, because we've
Yeah.
not done the Power Girl issues yet. Final letter reads,
Dear Joe, I just finished reading Super Team Family issue 8, and all I can say is, wow! I mean, the Challengers of the Unknown are great. You really ought to give them a try in their own mag. And when I saw the cover featuring 4 men against 4 dinosaurs, I really thought the mag had gone downhill. 4 dinosaurs? Only 1 there. But all it took was a glance through it, and I bought it immediately. I also like the revival of the Doom Patrol, so keep it up, says F.A. Marciniak from Wheaton, Illinois.
Steve, have you been to Wheaton recently? Does Will live there? Let us know. I'm going to mention the editorial response here. Alas, we're out of space for this issue. Make sure you're with us in 60 days for the all-new book-length team-up between 3 of our greatest heroes, Supergirl, Flash and Atom. So that's after issue 10. So the Challengers obviously got issues 8, 9 and 10 before their own book was revived. That's quite interesting. And listeners, you might be surprised, but we are not planning to do the big epic Supergirl, Flash, Atom, Hawkman, Green Lantern, Captain Comet, Aquaman story, because we talked about it and we decided it's too tenuous. But if you want to start your own podcast and do them, go ahead, that's fine. We did think about it, but, you know.
We want the Atom Cast, the Adventures of Ray Palmer.
Yes.
Someone do that.
If someone's doing a dedicated Ray Palmer podcast, they can go and do it. It's, frankly, it'd be far too much work. The stories are all wonderful, but they're all far too long. And yes, we know the Secret Society are involved briefly, but we've got far too much else to get through at this point between 1976 and 1978. And frankly, we want to go on with that as much as we can this year. So, yes, we won't be doing those ones just in case anyone was wondering. What we will be doing, though, very soon is another issue of Shazam featuring another Golden Age DC hero, and we will be doing another issue of JLA, which references someone from Earth 2, and we will be doing some more issues of All-Star Comics and the Freedom Fighters before you know it. Isn't that right, Peter?
It most certainly is. Listeners, are you excited for that? Are you? Why don't you write to us and tell us how excited you are? You can email us at theearth2podcast@gmail.com. Make sure you follow us on social media, because we're putting up some lovely bonus material for this, and of course, every single episode. On Facebook, Instagram, and Blue Sky, we're at the Earth 2 Podcast, and on Twitter, we're at podcast_Earth2, and it is numero 2 for all of our socials.
It certainly is. Listeners, if you're enjoying what we're doing, please consider going to wherever it is you receive your podcast and leaving us a positive review, or finding your way to our Linktree page where you can access our coffee page where you could buy Peter the price of a beverage. I'm sure Peter would appreciate it. Isn't that right, Peter?
I most certainly would, yes. Thank you very much.
Yes, thanks in advance, everyone. On that bombshell.
I've been Peter.
And I've been David, and we'll see you again very soon on the
Earth 2 Podcast.
Transmatter Cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
Gott in Himmel!
So I'm just pouring myself a drink. Okay.
No, that's fine. Take your time. All good.
I thought I'd have it done by the time you finish the description. Damn.
He's gonna f this up 5 times. I'll just pour my drink.
I've got plenty of time. We'll book a hair appointment and all sorts. Anyway, right. Okay, sorry. Right.
And Rocky goes flying, flinging punches, and immediately he knocks out a couple of the guys who are riding the weird big rhinoceros. Sorry.
Rhinoceros. I like that.
I know. Okay, was that? Well, I just call them it. We'll just call them that.
Yeah.
Okay, right. It was a mango thing, right?
Unconsciousness has claimed them. We must imprison them before they arrive. Unconsciousness has claimed them. We must imprison them before they revive.
We must imprison them before they get here.
That's forward planning.
Yes, we shift to Joan back on her boat, and she's flying along thinking, great. I was supposed to... Are you Joan or is that me?
No,
I'm saying Joan and it's June. It's June.
June. Crikey. Okay.
Crikey. Okay, so after the caption,